Okay, it ended really abruptly, but welcome to Expressions like live conversation. It's been quite a while since we've had one, so I'm a bit out of practice, but it's really great to have John and Paul with us today. I'm Lizzie. I work for Fresh Expressions. I'm based in Liverpool and run Story House, which is a coffee shop and a charity and a fresh expression of church. If you're joining us, wherever you're joining us from today, it would be great if you could say hi, tell us where you are, where you're kind of tuning in from, and also at any part in the conversation, we'd love to hear from you. If you've got questions, comments, or maybe a story, we'd like you to be part of this conversation. So do jot down your thoughts, and we'll try and kind of chat about them as well, because it's great to have other voices in the conversation. So just to give you a little bit of information about Fresh Expressions, you might know a lot about Fresh Expressions, you might not know anything, but we are a growing movement of everyday people across all denominations, starting new Christian communities in the nooks and crannies of people's everyday lives, from new housing to rural, urban, suburban, messy church, third age, the forest, coffee shops, beaches, pubs, barns, online, and even in church buildings. We're not a denomination or a pathway to ordination, but we're a grassroots movement filled with people who just can't stop thinking about who isn't in church and they want to do something about it. And as an organisation, we resource, equip and connect pioneers across the UK and beyond. And a big part of what we do is sharing stories of what people are doing in different parts of the UK. It's being like Fresh Expressions practitioners are really creative, and it's always great to hear new ideas. So we've got Paul and John with us from the west, down in the West Country. Like, I'm in the north, and these guys are down in the south. But yeah, could you guys just introduce yourselves to everyone watching? Tell us where you are and what you're doing.
John, do you want to go first?
Go on then, I'll have a go. Hello everybody, thank you so much, Lizzie, for having us. It's very, very exciting to be chatting with you today, so thanks for that, and it's nice to see people cropping up on the chat as well. So hi, my name's John. I'm a Baptist pioneer minister, and I'm in Poole with Paul, and I've got 3 young kids, and we moved here about, I think it's 3 years ago now. And I am involved with a social enterprise that we started called the Water Sports Library, which is about trying to help people borrow and share water sports equipment. But I'm also working alongside Paul and some other pioneer types in a team called Paul Missional Communities.
Amazing. Paul, you're obviously in the same place.
Yeah, John and I are sort of sitting about 300 yards from each other in the centre of Poole. Yeah, so I'm Paul Bradbury. I came to Paul 13 years ago now, to 13 and a half years ago. Yeah, with invited really with a sort of carte blanche to start something that would reach out to people with no experience of church. So we started a community called Reconnect, which is still going, which I no longer lead. We've passed on the leadership of that, and sort of wrapped around Reconnect and a whole host of other sort of emerging stuff is Poole Missional Communities. So that's the charity that holds the Bishop's Mission Order, and yeah, we've got a team of pioneers, John being one of them, that we support, and we're increasingly kind of helping others think about fresh expressions and missional community and pioneer ministry. Yeah, we do a lot of work with the Salisbury Diocese because we're an Anglican Bishop's Mission Order, but we're working ecumenically increasingly. So networking pioneers across Dorset, for example, running the CMS certificate, which starts next month. Yeah, so a whole bunch of stuff now. So it's rooted in local pioneering. We really want to keep learning from people's local experience, but then from that learning, kind of offering opportunities to engage with pioneering more widely.
Amazing. It's so great having that community, because yeah, like we were saying just off camera, like it can be quite lonely when you're pioneering something new, starting something new, but to have that community to support each other and equip them, that's so awesome. I'm just gonna give, like, it's great, thank you for saying where you are, and saying hi. Do you continue to do that? I need to give a special mention to Geraldine. Okay, so Geraldine, she now is part of Storyhouse Church because she found out about us through a Fresh Expressions broadcast that we did in lockdown, and she is awesome. And we are so grateful to God that we have her. And like,
hello,
she does
Geraldine.
Everything. Yeah, okay, Geraldine gets a shout out. We're saying she can do anything. It's brilliant. She's our spiritual parent. It's awesome. And so if maybe you might be moving to Poole, you might want to get involved, get in touch with these guys. We can connect you with a fresh expression. It's happened to me and it was amazing. So yeah, it was, yeah. She's
what
so
a great
cool.
place Formby is. That's a fabulous place.
Yeah, it's beautiful by the beach. You got the squirrel forest. Yeah, it's a great place. So we're here to talk about, you guys have created a resource called Table, and to help people start missional communities. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about missional communities and a bit more about the resource over this hour. And so if you've got especially questions about missional communities, maybe you don't know anything about them, we will talk about that, but do pop your questions in the chat. But to start with, we've got a video that you guys created, which I'm going to share. So hopefully the technology will work and it will all be brilliant. Let me just see. It's very smooth, as you can tell. Here we go. So yeah, we've got a little video which is like an introduction to Table, the resource, and a bit about missional communities.
You know that story in the book where he's on the run from his own family, and he gets to a random town called Uz, and he sets his head down to rest on a stone, and he has that trippy dream about angels ascending and descending from heaven. He wakes up the next morning and he literally renames the whole place Bethel, which means the house of God, because he says God was in this place and I was not aware of it. Well, inside churches, community centres, pubs and parks, all kinds of people are having this Jacob experience right now. We're awakening to find God in the office, God on the ocean, God at work in the cafe, God loving our neighbours. And we want to put down a marker and say, right here, where I am, is the house of God. But then this raises questions for us. What does worship look like in these places? What kind of work can he do here? Is it possible to build Christian community right where we are? A group of people bound by love, sharing in Christ's mission for the world. That's a missional community. And if that sounds like you, then we're excited to let you know about Table. We've designed 5 beautiful tablecloths to be used as a resource to help a group of people think through these questions. Each tablecloth uses imagery to draw out conversation around mission, theology, culture, the way of Jesus, and how to lead your group forward. The idea is to invite your group over for 5 meals and have the meal on top of the tablecloth. Everything is right there to get you going. Your friends are invited to draw, scribble, and write thoughts as the evening goes on. While some courses are designed to be led by experts imparting their wisdom, we believe that instead everyone has experience, insight, and wisdom to bring to the table, if you'll pardon the pun. The beginning of the course encourages divergent thinking as you explore different options and big ideas about God in your own context, but the last two aim to focus your group towards some practical steps and ask what's next. By the end of it, you should have a clear idea about where God is wanting you to go and hopefully what you'll need to do about it right away. We're also developing a digital version that can be done online and edited in real time so that your group can express themselves simply and visibly. So what are you waiting for? Join the conversation at table.
Oh no. 1 second, sorry. I couldn't stop the video. Okay, right, I'm just going to bring these guys back on. That was a really helpful video, and it gives us a little bit of an example of like the resource, and we're going to show some images of it later because the design is really beautiful. So obviously this resource is about missional, it's to help people start missional communities. I wonder if you guys could tell us a little bit about your experience of missional communities and you know, why, obviously you think they're great because you want to help other people start them. So why do you think they're great? How do they work? I don't know who wants to start, kick us off.
You go first this time, Paul.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Drop and change.
Well, I really like John's description from the video, actually, a group of people bound by love, sharing God's mission in the community. That's a really good sort of distillation of missional community. I mean, it is a phrase I think a lot of people use in different ways, so it's hard to sort of pin it down. But I think there's something about people bound by love. So people being a Christian, an intentional Christian community right from the word go. So when we started Reconnect, I think we had a bunch of people who really wanted to live out their faith in community. So discipleship, authentic discipleship was really important to them. And, and maybe a kind of, not in distinction to, because that's maybe a bit binary, but a recognition that sometimes it's too easy just to show up at church and spectate and consume rather than, get stuck in and sort of say, well, what does this actually mean for me to live out the way of Jesus in my life with others? And so a bunch of people, I think, who kind of wanted to give that a go. But recognizing that part of that discipleship is then reaching out and engaging with the wider community. So I would say discipleship or church is missional community. I mean, we put the word missional on it. It's a missional Christian community, if you like, but in a sense that's a bit redundant because actually being part of a Christian community is being missional in the same way that God is missional. But maybe again, with the sort of legacy of Christendom, we've kind of lost that emphasis. We've just sort of kept the door open and expected people to turn up. So it's kind of giving back people the responsibility and of being in a community that engages with its wider community with the love of God. So I suppose one of the things to add to that, therefore, is something about size, is that missional communities tend to be small and I think there are a number of reasons for that. One is that once you get beyond a certain size, it's quite hard to maintain that sense of togetherness and community and people knowing one another and relationship being, a fundamental value, and participation, which is a very strong value for Reconnect, being the fundamental value that we're living out. And also, I think the bigger you get, the more you tend to sort of kind of delegate responsibility to the church, to the organization of the church for mission, rather than actually this is us. This is us as a community. We've all got skin in the game here, kind of thing. So I don't quite know what the sort of limit of that size is, but it seems to me that missional community remains small, so that relationship and community and responsibility for mission and discipleship kind of gets held within the community.
Amazing. It seems like it's a really significant conversation to have coming out of lockdown, because it like communities change so much, and you know, like we've been so isolated from each other, so to then, I don't know, it feels even more attractive at this moment, having been quite passive or maybe just watching online, to kind of refresh our imagination of what church could be like in those close relationships. I think it's something we've been missing. So yeah, it's great to talk about it, as you know, who knows what 2022 brings, but hopefully we'll be able to hang out with each other more. But yeah, John, what about you? Like, what's your experience of missional communities?
Yeah, I think mission itself is like a deeply personal thing to me, because not that it isn't to you guys, but in Bible college we I was on the brink actually of I deferred my final year at Bible college, and I was just wondering. I was kind of, I don't know, I was in a bad way. And I think it was mission, like at the end of that year, I went back and I did my dissertation on Alan Hirsch and Michael Frost. And I think it was the idea that mission isn't just a response to the decline of the church, but it's founded in the very nature of God himself. And that whole thing, I think, just opened up a whole new door for me and my own faith, I think, going forward. And I thought, this is where I want to put myself into. So I went to, I was part of Stopsy Baptist for a while up in Luton, and they were exploring what does it mean to launch missional communities out of a church context. And there was groups of people exploring all kinds of stuff. So, you know, there was a group exploring what does it mean to do park church in the park, using nature to bring people to the faith. There was a community that was around mental health and people with mental health, and what does it mean to live in the fullness of life. There was a community that was around sport, because our church was opposite a football field, which was absolutely packed with hundreds of people every Sunday. And so over time, my role became to sort of try and develop these communities and walk alongside them really as they do it. And I was just in my element. I thought it was so exciting. For me, the thing is that Jacob story that we started with in the video about, you know, God was here and I was not aware of it. That's the exciting thing for me, when somebody wakes up and goes, do you know what? I was down the pub, or I was like in my office, or I was like, you know, chatting to this group of people, and my eyes became opened to the fact that God was in this place. And then I think that leads just this series of, well, what does that mean? What are the instruments of worship in that place? How do you do the sacraments in that place? How do you talk meaningfully about God in those places? And that's the thing that really excites me, because if we believe in God, then God's everywhere. He's, you know, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And so when we moved down here 3 years ago, there was much excitement about moving to a new housing build. So we're on a new build, and you'll know Ali Bolton, and so yeah, and thanks to God we're now in this new housing estate, and so we're going, you know, what does it mean to live here as the community emerges and as new housing hopefully gets built? What does it mean to open our life with 3 kids? But then also we live in Poole. We love the water. I've been a surfer since I was 19. And so I'm using social enterprise, hopefully as a vaguely sustainable way of asking the question, what does it mean that God might be alive, active and working on the water? So yeah, sorry, I waffled on.
It's awesome. Well, you've got some fans. Wait a second. Adam says, "Preach it, Johnny." So there you go.
Yes, Adam. Good to see you, mate. Or at least see your thumbnail.
Yeah, it's like it's really great to talk this way about, you know, God in the places where we go to, because I think, you know, you can often think, oh, I've got to invite them to church, and we run a coffee shop that when we started a congregation in the coffee shop, rather than kind of go, okay, we've had a chat, do you want to come to the church over the road? It's like, well, this is how we met each other, and we enjoy hanging out here. So let's just keep talking about Jesus in this space, and it's so natural as well, and I think yeah, like when it's something you're interested and passionate about, Christians aren't boring. Like we have interests and we have hobbies and it's just, yeah, it's kind of but we can still kind of represent Jesus in those spaces. We went down to the tube station when my husband was training to be a vicar, and spent like a month with them there, and they're like a Fresh Expression in Cornwall that work with surfers, and that was really great. Like, you know, the people that ran it were surfers, and so they know the community, so why not, you know, do something with the guys that they hang out with. So yeah, it's brilliant, really exciting. Oh, we've got Adam's got a comment. I'm mindful of what Alan Hirsch and Michael Frost wrote, what the missional church disassembles is that the missional church disassembles itself and seeps into the cracks of society. Oh, that's amazing.
That's good.
Yeah. Oh, it's like we've got another person in the conversation. Thank you, Adam. That's really helpful.
I think your comment about earlier, Lizzie, about, you know, COVID and the pandemic, and are we post-pandemic? We had a gathering of the Dorset Pioneer Network, which is something that we've pulled together in the last couple of years, and Stuart Murray Williams was with us talking about just giving his reflections. Really, he was very don't be sorry, Adam, that was great. He was very humble, really, about his reflections. He said probably a third of what I'm about to say is wrong, but I don't know which third, which I thought was quite good. But you know, he echoed a lot of what I've been thinking in terms of, you know, so about the thirst for community, and that through the pandemic, a lot of people have discovered kind of local rooted community, and you know, I think that's very much a desire and a hope for people in missional community, you know, to sort of boil down church to this sort of rooted or connected community, you know, in context, rather than, as you say, that sense of sort of disjunction sometimes between the people you're meeting over here and the church, wherever it might be. And you know, and I wonder that what's happened through the pandemic is a kind of intensification of that, but also a deeper experience of that for a lot of other people, you know, that they've discovered neighborhood. And that's certainly happened in our street, you know. A bunch of people who kind of knew each other a little bit, and some more than others, have suddenly become a neighborhood and have got a heart and a value for place in a way that they never had before. So I do wonder whether missional community has kind of, there's a sort of bit of a kairos moment, I think, you know, for the church to, as Alan says, or Frost and Hirsch say, seep into the cracks of society, because there's like a real invitation there, I think, from people going, yeah, we like community, we've discovered it. How do we keep doing that? How do we grow in that?
Yeah, definitely. It's we've got the Fresh Expressions national gathering in March, and actually Alan Hirsch is going to be contributing. Yeah, I'll plug it later, but yeah, that's it's really cool. And also, John, you mentioned about going into new housing with Fresh Expressions. I'll put a comment on the live feed. We've got there's a new housing hub of people that, you know, to support people moving into new housing, because it is like a really unique missional opportunity of connecting and helping kind of build community there. So no, it was really cool that you mentioned that. So moving on to like talk about the resource you created. So it's called Table. Where did the idea come from? Like, and can you just give us a little bit more detail about what it does?
Do you want me to kick off, John?
Why not? Yeah. Why not?
Well, you can pick it up, because I suppose the idea sort of predates John coming to Poole, but John and I very much worked on it together, along with a designer called Danny, and you'll see some of her work later, I hope, because she's a brilliant graphic designer. But I suppose, you know, it goes way back for me to about 3 or 4 or 5 years into being here, thinking, you know, how do we share what we're learning with other people, and then how do we create a sort of movement out of this, rather than, well, we've just created Reconnect and that's great now. at the time, I got in touch with Fresh Expressions, and we started running the Mission Shaped Ministry course, which was great. And then we ran the sort of more flexible version of the Mission Shaped Ministry course, with individual groups. But I was always feeling like, as much as the material was good, and I hope I did my best to deliver it well, it always required somebody to go in and kind of be not so much the expert, but certainly kind of delivering material to people who were kind of receiving it. And yes, there was lots of engagement and discussion and participation, but I kind of thought we need something really simple and flexible that a group of people could take and use, in their own context. Kind of medium is the message thing. If we're going to create, multiply lots of small expressions of church, then we need a resource that enables people to do that. And they kind of, in the way of how they're going to be, the training is kind of delivered in that kind of medium. And then we went to Matryoshka House. I don't know if you've heard of their a sort of Christian-based sort of entrepreneurial group in London. And they've been using these massive discussion sheets that they printed on huge bits of paper. And I remember coming home on the train, just thinking, that's it. That's how we can do this. And then almost sort of sketched out the 5 weeks or the 5 sessions, very quickly on the kind of back of an envelope on the train on the way home. And then I think not long after that, got in touch with John, and because I thought I need a team to help me do this. And we started working with Danny on it. But yeah, just it was just getting the principle of, like, if we had a bunch of sheets that you just roll out on a table, you've already got a bunch of people hopefully meeting over dinner. Maybe they're going, how do we reach our community, or they're praying together, or whatever. Suddenly you've got a resource that they can just put in the middle, and off they go. And it doesn't need somebody to come in and be the expert or the tutor or whatever. It sort of streamlines with what they're already doing. That was the idea.
Amazing. I think, like, so many great things are started on scraps of paper, just like messy kind of bits of paper you just lay out on the table, and just to kind of start from scratch. Like, I know we've done it loads, but also, like you say, you don't need a professional or like someone ordained or trained. Like, you can just sit around the table and start dreaming together, and see what happens, which is awesome. So you've got 5 tablecloths that have been designed, and so what we're going to do now is, if we just chat through each of the tablecloths, we can show some of the images as well. The graphics are amazing. It looks like it's something that would just spark your creativity just looking at it. But we've got, let me just bring up, so we've got the first tablecloth here. So John, do you want to tell us kind of what this one's about, and why did we start with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the first theme that we had was mission, really, for people who didn't know. We sort of wanted it to be accessible for people, whether there might be a bunch of people within a church who are particularly imaginative or whatever, and they've spotted God at work, and they want to go off and do their own thing. But also there might be some people who are just starting from scratch, and they just know each other outside of church or whatever. And so, the obvious starting point was to start with who is God, and what does mission look like. So, like you can see, this one's pretty straightforward, because it's divided into, I think it's 5 sections in the first tablecloth. So it talks about the 5 marks of mission. It talks about what your motivations for mission might be, because I think that's an interesting question, because people come to a process like that with all kinds of assumptions about what it is that we're doing. I was chatting with somebody today on the phone, and he was saying that people still have a mindset when you talk about mission, despite the last sort of 10 years and all the work that's gone into it, they still think of overseas. We're going overseas somewhere to talk this stuff through. There's a section called who are you, which is kind of trying to get people to say, it was trying to look at what missional community could take the form of something that is really countercultural. It could be, your missional community could be something that there's something about society or something about in culture that needs challenging, and you are bonded to the work of God in challenging that. But then over the other side of the bridge there, it might be that your missional community is like massively pro something in culture and wants to like align itself with something culturally that's happening. And so it's just trying to call out some of those assumptions and expectations that lay dormant in people, because, you know, once you get a group of people around the table, you know, one person might be very, very countercultural in how they understand the work of God and church, and another person might be, you know, much more transformational and wants to align themselves with culture. So yeah, and then what does mission look like? And what's the other one? Where is God active in your world? So that it's just about trying to find a starting point for where people are at, really, and then how God might be active in their neighbourhoods, or the thing that joins them together.
Amazing. That's so great. It's really interesting talking about, like, you know, what you're passionate about, because there's just kind of heard about this as like a student movement called Just Love, and it's like Christian students around the country, and they want to, their kind of passion is like social justice, which is really a big thing, especially amongst like millennials and Gen Z, you know, like that younger generation. And they've started, they've got different groups around the country in different university cities that kind of join together around that heart for social justice. It's really cool to see, like young people as well just starting something on their own and going for it. So it's great. It doesn't have to be, it could be anything. It could be just something that you're passionate about, because we've got Adam, and he's joined in the conversation. Obviously he's got revs, like lots of car enthusiasts and stuff, so it can be anything.
He's done an amazing thing with that community. That's what I think, that's one of the real privileges of the kind of work that we do, though, is that you get to say, you know, God's interested in the stuff that I'm interested in, and that's okay. You know, whereas I think, you know, I've had experience elsewhere where you sort of think, well, what you do and what you're interested in is great, but it's kind of, it's not really to do with what we are doing together as a team, if you see what I mean. So I found that massively liberating, that God is in, you know, the places that we love.
Definitely. Amazing. So we've got the so that's tablecloth one. Then we've got do you do menu plans as well, or like recipes?
We should that'll be the next resource, John. Some sort of cookbook to go with it.
Totally, that'd be awesome. So watch this space, everyone. So the second one is called C. And so if I just bring up this one's so cool, I love this one. So Paul, do you want to tell us a bit about this tablecloth and what it kind of is about?
This is sort of starting to dig into the change in the relationship between the church and culture, particularly in the West. So kind of post-Christendom stuff, but looking at it through different lenses, hence the little, don't know what you call that. Is that a cine camera? Anyway, you know, kind of antique camera. There are different ways of looking at this, and we've offered 4. Because my experience is that whole kind of Christendom, post-Christendom thing can really open people's eyes, you know, particularly if you've been in a more traditional church culture. I remember talking to somebody when we were doing the Mission Shaped Mission course, who was at the beginning of a session still under that impression that if we just did, you know, our services really, really well, if we did a really good Remembrance Day service and a really good Mother's Day service or whatever, then people would come. And by the end of the session, I felt a bit guilty, really. We'd explored this sort of thing, and I kind of felt like the scales fell from his eyes, really. You know, he was like, we need to do that, but it's not going to be enough to engage with our culture because of the seismic shift that's taken place. So this is what that kind of digs into that, helping people engage with that. So looking at it in terms of the top one is people. It's like that it used to be that the church was very much at the center of our communities, very often geographically, but in terms of how people thought. And now it's, you know, part of a tapestry, you know, and there's all sorts of things in our society, and the church is perhaps peripheral, or certainly just one of many institutions and organizations that people may or may not connect with. The second one is more about morals and ethics. You know, who makes the rules? It used to be that very much Christianity made the rules and people abided by them, and now who makes the rules and what sort of things make people make decisions morally, ethically. The third one's much more about beliefs. So Christendom, you know, this is what we believe and this is what you have to sign up to. Whereas now it's kind of like beliefs are contested, debated, there's dialogue, there's conversation, and that's probably a good thing. And then the last one is about kind of church at the center of a valley and church on the side of the hill. So it used to be that, in a sense, the gravity of culture brought people to church. So it was like people came to be baptized or to have their funeral or marriage or be educated and healed and so on and so forth. And whereas now it kind of feels like there's still a little bit of that happening. The culture does still bring people to the door of the church, but really much of our culture is taking people away from church. So how do we engage with that? So yeah, it's really kind of connecting into that Christendom, post-Christendom conversation.
Amazing. It's great to have some questions and themes to help unpack and understand a bit of what's going on in culture, because I think sometimes you know church has been far away, but it's good to have some prompts, I think, to help you unpack, okay, well, why is that, what's going on in our community, because it, like, fresh expressions are very contextual, and I think that's a really fantastic quality about them. But it's like you said previously about missional communities, with people seeing mission as something maybe that's overseas, as we're in a culture that is not Christian, and so it's applying that missional outlook to the communities we're a part of, because then it can help us communicate so much better as well, like understanding the culture that we're in. And again, we can't do that unless we are friends with people who don't know Jesus as well. Like we can
exactly. I like it, and I mean, some of it's quite difficult actually, stuff to plow through. Like we found when we were talking through that, we were talking about our slight obsession as Christians with space and controlling the space that we're in. And what we want to do is invite people into our space so that then we can talk to them about our thing. But now, if we're part of a mosaic, in society, then what does it mean for us to share space with other people? And we are only a voice in a multitude of voices. And how do you facilitate genuine relationship when you are only one voice out of many? We were sort of saying that actually gets quite vulnerable then, I think. But also opens up some doors as well, probably.
Yeah, definitely. I know when lockdown hit, in a lot of the conversations around, like, in the FX movement, the different events that we had, a lot of people were talking about how the role of host had changed. So it was no longer that the church or the community, you weren't the hosting anymore, because you couldn't have people in the building. So, but actually that loss of the power or control, that actually that it was good to have to rethink, how do we do that? But it's quite uncomfortable as well.
And Stuart Murray Williams the other day, I keep mentioning him because he has so many good, useful insights, but he said something really interesting, and I think it connects with a lot of people's experience, is that one of the things the pandemic did is that, when everything sort of happened and people wanted to respond to what was going on in their community, a lot of churches were like, yeah, this is what we do. We respond to people's need, and went out to respond to it and found that other people were already doing it. Other people had already got there first, kind of thing. And I think that kind of opened up, really shone a light on this Christendom, post-Christendom thing. Where the church is used to being the organisation that meets people's needs in the community. And I think the pandemic shone a light on, hey, we're not the only people to do that, and very often other people are doing it just as well, if not better than we are. So partnership has got to be part of the way that we operate in the future, if it isn't already.
Definitely, there's a humility to that approach, isn't there? That I think, like, as a church, we're used to being the people that organise it. When lockdown hit, because we run a cafe, it closed. We had a lot of food that was going to go off, so we needed to, because we didn't know how long we'd be closed for. And at first, like with the staff, they were like, well, can we distribute it to or people, deliver it to people who can't get out of the house and stuff like that. But then we found that actually there were other people doing that, and so it was like, well, we could, but there's not actually a need because that's already been taken care of. So in the end, we took it to like some of the local hospitals for like the staff, but it was having to think, it wasn't just defaulting to like, we'll just do this, but we had to really look at the context and look at where the needs were and not just assume we knew what the needs were as well. And so that it was quite, it was an interesting kind of challenge, to kind of just rethink and look in our area where what can we do with what we have. We've got I think Adam really should get royalties or something, I don't know. But he was saying, like, wonder too if we have to get over the them and us mentality, so that even in the mission work we do it with people of faith, no faith, and everything in between. We learn as much as we do. It's very true. I think that that learning, like not believing that we know everything when we approach stuff, is really important.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So we've got the third tablecloth, jazz. Now, jazz, I've heard jazz illustration metaphors used so much around kind of like fresh expressions, pioneering, but I think it's also like I wish I was like cultured enough to be able to listen to a lot of jazz. Like I can do it for a bit and then I'm like, no, I can't do it anymore.
I keep trying,
Yeah, I want to be that cool. Like, but I can appreciate it. But it is like a fantastic kind of metaphor for the approach of pioneering and starting something new. I love the images again of this one, but can you unpack a bit about what this one is about, why jazz? Just let's chat some jazz.
Let's chat jazz. There's probably some imposter syndrome here from from our side of things, I think, in terms of jazz. But I think jazz is about improvising on a theme or improvising on a score, and so to play jazz as we understand it, as complete novices, it is about learning what that score is, what that tune is, and then being able to replicate it in innovative and interesting and contextual ways. I think it's like Let It Be, or one of those songs from the Beatles that's been copied, replicated, and improvised on like literally thousands of times. There's so many ways that people have done that tune, and even though it's not like a jazz song necessarily, it's lent itself to just heaps and heaps of musicians. And so all we're trying to say really is that the gospel is like that. That it is something that we need to be sure about. It is something that we need to learn, that we need to understand. What does Jesus' life, death, and resurrection mean for us as people? But then also, it's that age-old thing of being able to have, the gospel in one hand and culture in the other, and balancing those two themes and asking the question, what does the gospel look like for these people right here, like in this time, kind of thing. So that's my phone. I'm so sorry.
I thought it was going to be Let It Be, like just playing in the background.
Finally, that's it. Here's one I made earlier.
No, it's really helpful. That kind of creative response. We've got Francis has added a really great comment following on from our conversation. That it reminded her of a quote from the preface of Donovan's Christianity Rediscovered, and that's a fantastic bit for anyone who is just wanting to understand what it's like to kind of reimagine, what church could be like and how to connect with people and share your faith. But he kind of says going with the people that he was sent to a place that neither they nor we have ever been before. And I think that's very jazz-like as well, isn't it? You don't sometimes, like, the musicians start, but you don't know where the song's going to go. And it's very, and different people, start playing different instruments and maybe take it somewhere else. And it's letting go of the control. and seeing what can happen, which is so hard to do sometimes. Even when you can start out creative, but then you're like, oh, but I want to do this, and like you got an idea. But yeah,
we'll see.
I was going to say the other thing about this sheet is it encourages people to dig into scripture as well, and so there's a bunch of gospel texts mainly, or references. So looking at how Jesus goes about mission and how he encourages his disciples to go about mission, and and I think any of us engaging in these will see some of exactly what Francis and Adam are talking about. Kind of blurring that guest host or relationship and going to a place that neither parties have been before. So there's something about missional posture, and I think it's kind of digging into that sense that we need to inhabit a different missional posture in a post-Christendom context where we're open to dialogue and partnership and all of that sort of thing. But it's going back to scripture and recognizing that's what Jesus did, in his conversation with the Syrophoenician woman or his conversation with the Samaritan woman. That's what you see dialogue and him willing to kind of go, okay, yeah, let's go there. I hadn't expected that. And so, yeah.
No, it's really great. I think also that can happen with failure as well, that you might have an idea of what success looks like, and with pioneering something new, sometimes it doesn't go to plan, or it ends, or the people disappear, or whatever it might be. But that doesn't mean that God's not doing something, and that something different could grow out of it. You definitely learn from it, but there's an experimental approach to it that I think it's that permission to fail, which I know a lot of pioneers talk about a lot, which you need, because it's not going to be smooth and slick and like, oh look, this is the final idea, it just worked exactly to plan. But letting making mistakes and maybe things stopping so that something else can grow.
I think quite often I think I sort of wonder how good at jazz we are really as Christians, because even people like us, because I kind of think we keep going, I don't know, where's the score, where's the original one again, like we just need to I need to play something. Like jazz is quite wild, and it's quite it's like there's sections that are just completely out there on there. And I think you have to, there's got to be a willingness as well as a skill to be able to journey into those places which where really no one's got the language for it at the moment, or no one's expressing it that way before. And so I think there is I think people are doing it, but sometimes I recognize in myself that I want to return to the original far too quickly, like instead of trying to improvise on what Jesus is doing in the Gospels.
Definitely. Like we could do a whole session on jazz, like a late night thing, like just like with a whiskey or whatever. We should definitely. Actually, at the Fresh Expressions, what was it, denominational learning community that we had in December, we had different people from all different denominations and looking at mission and fresh expressions in their denomination, and guys from Church of Scotland. One of the guys there, he's a jazz musician, and he was kind of using that as an illustration of like where they're at as a denomination. But actually, he's recorded a video for us that I'm going to share on social media once we've edited it down over the next few weeks, just using his expertise to kind of unpack where they're at as a church and thinking about mission in this new cultural moment, which is like really inspiring. I think the other thing, jazz, not everyone likes it, and that's okay. Some people like easy listening, and like they're never going to like jazz. And so it's kind of being okay with like it's not going to be everyone's cup of tea, and they might not get it as well, and kind of letting go of that. I think is definitely part of pioneering. So we're gonna, now we've gone all like creative and like we're gonna go down to the practical.
You can leave it there if you want, but you won't, you know what I mean.
We could just
get somewhere.
Exactly. And I think that you can get stuck like just thinking of what could we do, what could be better, but it is it's a practical thing. Like being a missional community, it's practice, and so your next tablecloth moving swiftly on is, it kind of brings it down to what to do. So do you want to explain this one?
Shall I kick off, John? Yeah, so this is very simply setting out the rucksack in the middle. It's kind of like what you need to get on the way, really. So we're now into that more convergent aspect of the journey that we hope groups will go on. They've done some good thinking, and they've hopefully, kind of brought out in the open some of their kind of missional assumptions and stuff. And now this is like, okay, if we're going to go with this, we need to make some decisions together. So we particularly encourage people to look at vision and values. And I think sometimes in the church, there's this kind of like assumption that you've got to nail this vision and values for all time and forever. And actually kind of we're saying that this is something that you'll continue to talk about. But there's probably enough there through your relationships and the conversations that you've had to come up with something that gets you on the road. So encouraging people to think, what is your vision? So like write your vision in a tweet, just kind of like between you, come up with something prayerfully and through conversation together. What are your values? What's the sort of DNA? If you see the bottom right hand corner there, the image of DNA, what are the things that, seem to be really important to you in terms of values as a community? And then there's an opportunity to talk about leadership. We offer some different models of leadership to discuss. Encourage people to think about family life. What kind of rhythm of meet? We've got to meet together somehow. We've got to do some stuff together in order for a community to form and grow. So what sort of rhythms are we going to establish? And then looking at the classic kind of up in and out triangle. How might we balance that the activities around up in worship, in developing community, out in mission. So there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot there for people to get their heads around. And it's like with all of these sheets, we encourage people not to think of it as like a 5-week thing, or even a 5-session thing. This might be something that you take 2 or 3 sessions over, however long you need. Because there's a lot here to discuss.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's just great having like something to hang off what it's going to look like, I think, because sometimes you can feel a bit overwhelmed, like we want to start something, but how do we kind of add a bit of structure to it? So that's really, really helpful. In the comment about that it doesn't have to be set in stone as well. I think you can feel it's a creative process, isn't it? And just learning as you go. But no, that's brilliant. And then we've got the final one. Go. So John, tell us about this one.
Well, go is like a kind of wrapping up of everything that you've kind of been talking through, just collecting everything that you've got, and then it's about stepping over the threshold, really. And we've got right in the middle of the door. You can't quite see it, but it's about Jesus breathing his spirit onto the disciples, and so there's a kind of like a self-commissioning really about it, that's saying, okay, do you know what, we've talked about this a lot, let's give it a crack. And the reason there's envelopes all over it is because it's also about invitation. So it's not just about us stepping over the threshold, but it's like, well, who are we inviting into this, and what are we inviting them to, kind of thing. So we kind of, as we were designing it, we sort of realized that, hold on a sec, this whole thing is about an invitation. God, like Jesus says, I am the light of the world, but he also says you are the light of the world. And so there's we want to step into this invitational nature of God, really. And so there's a question about, who are we inviting, and to what?
Amazing. That's fantastic. I've put in the comments, there's a link where you can get the resources from, but also you have because obviously sometimes we've not been able to meet in person. You have kind of developed is that like an online version of the resource as well? So would that be done over Zoom? Is that the kind of idea? So you use the themes and then do it virtually, I suppose.
Do you want to take this on, Paul?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, basically, yeah, it's a combination of Zoom, and we encourage people to use something called Miro. There are other interactive whiteboards available, but we did a bit of research and found that Miro was probably the best and free one, definitely. So yeah, it's a free interactive whiteboard. So what basically we offer is that we train to sort of access the digital resource, which would essentially be 5 digital downloads of the sheets. Yeah, we'll run a training session which would enable people who are facilitating it, because I think facilitating it online is a little bit more tricky. So with the physical resource, we give people a booklet with some notes on facilitation, and really it's just about hosting a conversation. And so giving some people some pointers on that. With the digital version, there's just a little bit more sort of technical stuff required, setting it up and getting people in Miro. And there are different ways you could use it. You could just have a session in Miro, or you could encourage people to engage with it during the week and then have a conversation when you meet together on Zoom. So it's a little bit more complex. So yeah, if people want to use it like that, we'll run a training session for them, and then they get access to all the stuff. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. So yeah, we're just about to kind of draw this to a close. I haven't told you I'm going to ask you this, but like if you were to do like an elevator pitch, or just like a couple of sentences of like, table, like why should you kind of use this resource? What would you say? You had like, a minute with someone to plug it.
Ooh.
I would say something along the lines of, if you and a bunch of friends are looking for a way where you can share opinion and become a missional community for yourselves, and you're after an easy way to be able to do that, then Table is the most accessible thing you'll find for your money.
Amazing. Anything else to add, Paul?
I'm terrible at elevator pitches, I have to say. But I would say, I think this is the cultural moment for Missional Community. If you're sitting there with a bunch of friends going, we've always wanted to reach our street, or we've always, we feel God is calling us to reach our whatever, young people, etc., etc. How do we go on a journey to put some form and content around that? Yeah, give Table a go. I think it's fantastic.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, if you do use it, do get in touch and let us know how you got on. We'd love to hear like some stories as well. And also like in the text under the broadcast, there's a link to Paul Missional Communities. So if you want to connect with these guys, or if you're in the area and you want to find out more about what's going on there, then do get in touch with John and Paul. I'm sure they will. It sounds like with some of the Beatles. I just realised.
We just need Ringo.
As been said before. We're just looking for the other members,
Yeah. That's amazing. So yeah, thank you so much, guys. It's been such a rich conversation, and so great to talk together. And yeah, I think we should do a late night jazz session somehow. We'll have to work out how to do that. But yeah, like just for anyone who's listening, just to let you know, we do have our Fresh Expressions March gathering coming up. It's a national gathering that is going to be fully hybrid. So this is the first time we're doing this, but you can book on to come in person at the Hayes Conference Centre, or you can connect with it online. And we're working with a company that is really good at doing like hybrid events, and so you'll be able to ask questions and interact just as much as if you were in person. So it would be like a real immersive experience still, and it's called More Than. So it's kind of really looking at the final part of the Fresh Expressions journey, and kind of thinking like at this significant point in history, like we believe that through Fresh Expressions, God has a more than vision to offer to the world and to the church. And it's going to be there's going to be a panel of movement makers, different people involved in kind of starting movements similar to like Missional Communities, do something maybe they're passionate about, as well as some keynote sessions from Alan Hirsch, who is like a writer and a thought leader in the missional church movement. And of course, there's going to be time to connect, share stories, dream, be encouraged, and have a bit of fun. So I'll put the link below where you can book on. We'd love to see you there. Oh no, here we go. Oh, that's gone weird. Yeah, so that would be fantastic to have you join us. If you want to get in touch and connect with Fresh Expressions in any way, the best way really is to sign up for our newsletter, and you'll be up to date with all the kind of news and details about events, conversations, resources, all that kind of thing. So do sign up to our newsletter. The link will be in the chat, and hopefully, we'll see you soon with another broadcast, another live conversation. If there's anything you'd like us to talk about, let us know. If you have a story or something you'd like to share, then we'd love to hear that. But for now, we will leave you to your afternoon. It's been great to have you. Thank you, Paul and John, and we will see you soon. Goodbye. We'll do the obligatory Zoom wave, Thanks
so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.